Hoy el clima empresarial en Alemania ha demostrado que esa recuperación económica que hemos visto en los primeros meses del año no está siguiendo su curso, por lo menos se ha tomado un pequeño respiro. Ese índice de confianza empresarial ha vuelto a bajar por debajo de lo que estaba esperado por los mercados. ¿Cuál es el motivo? Hoy se lo hemos preguntado a Clemens Fuest, que es presidente del Instituto IFO de Investigaciones Económicas de Múnich. Le hemos intentado preguntar por qué ha decepcionado el IFO en este nuevo dato que hemos conocido en el día de hoy y nos respondía esto.
We see that companies complain about a backlog order decline, so they are not getting enough orders. This is true for manufacturing, and it is also true for retail, and that's in a way surprising because wages are rising, so we would expect consumers to buy more, and this is not happening.
Why do you think it's not happening?
Bueno, le hemos preguntado también por qué el consumo se está ralentizando, que es justo lo que nos decía y justo escuchaban, creo, parte de mi pregunta. Vamos a ver cuál es su respuesta.
About energy prices or we have seen a stabilization in recent months. It was not a very strong upturn, but a stabilization, and that gave rise to the hope that things would improve over the year. But what we are seeing now is that companies don't really trust this recovery, and the more fundamental problems holding back investment in Germany, which is high taxes for corporations, a lot of bureaucracy, regulation, high energy prices, uncertainty about future energy supply, maybe also concerns about geopolitical tensions and the impact on German exports. All of this is holding back the economy, and this also has an impact on consumers.
Bueno, pues también le hemos preguntado si ahora mismo está habiendo un punto de inflexión en la economía alemana a raíz de este dato que ha sido un poquito peor de lo esperado y vuelve a registrar un empeoramiento. Esto nos decía Clemens Fuest.
Well, hopefully not. We will have to see in the coming months whether we get back to this stabilization. I personally don't think that this stabilization has ended, but at the same time, we see that we do not currently have a solid upturn, which would be something very welcome, but it's just not coming.
Bueno, le hemos preguntado también si piensa que esa fase de la recuperación, esa primera fase de la recuperación ha terminado. Esto nos respondía.
Maybe yes, it could be the end of a first phase of stabilization. So this stabilization was driven by the expectation that interest rates may decline, the expectation that consumers may be spending more, also very importantly, declining energy prices. So gas prices, for instance, have been very high last year, and they have come down and normalized, and that has helped the energy-intensive industry a little bit. But what's now lacking is forces continuing this stabilization and transforming it into a solid upturn. That's something that's not coming. We now have a setback, and we will have to see. Maybe consumers will be more positive later in the year and start spending, and maybe companies will also become a little more optimistic. Now, a lot will depend on whether the government succeeds in introducing legislation and agreeing on a package of reforms that improve investment conditions in Germany, like reducing the tax burden, maybe doing something about the bureaucracy, doing something about limitations of labor supply. I mean, if the government can pull off this plan to come up with legislation that would help the economy a lot more.
Pero eso parecían más bien políticas de largo plazo. Le hemos preguntado a Clemens Fuest si hay alguna política de corto plazo que Scholz ahora pueda aplicar para ayudar a impulsar esta recuperación.
It's very difficult for the government to do short-term policies at this point, and I think it's also more important to deal with the long-term challenges, because that's really what's holding back investment in Germany. Investment is a long-term issue, and what is needed for more investment is really a structural reform package. Do something about the tax burden, do something about bureaucracy. I think what's needed is a convincing medium-term plan, not so much short-term stimulus.
Le hemos preguntado también por las expectativas empresariales, que ha sido la parte que peor ha quedado para el IFO, y esto nos respondía.
Yes, business expectations are bad because companies see that there are no incoming orders, and they know, yes, we currently still have some orders, but if this trend continues, we will be running out of orders and we will have to cut back our production. And that's why they say it's the expectations side that's particularly worrying at the moment.
Pero el Banco Central Europeo ya saben que ha bajado los tipos una vez y puede seguir haciéndolo, puede hacerlo también en septiembre, por ejemplo. ¿Por qué parece que esta primera bajada no ha impactado en la confianza de las empresas?
I think that the first cut in interest rates was priced in relatively early. We have seen when interest rates were cut that market interest rates, for instance, mortgage rates, haven't moved much. And that's simply because this has already been priced in. I think this cut was a factor early in the year, stabilizing the economy, but now more would have to happen. And what we expect currently is maybe 2 further small rate cuts in the rest of the year. This is also priced in. So for more stimulus, we would need a surprise to the upside. So maybe 3 or 4 interest rate cuts. And whether that comes depends, of course, on the development of inflation and inflation expectations. And for the euro area as a whole, inflation seems to have a hard time going below 2%. The ECB says it will be above 2 in 2025 as well. So maybe the ECB will be more reluctant to cut rates.
La pregunta que nos hacemos todos, ¿significa este empeoramiento en las expectativas empresariales que Alemania puede entrar en una recesión? Nos decía que de momento no.
I do not see a recession, which would mean a shrinking economy. The trouble is I don't see an upturn either. So it seems like the German economy is caught in stagnation. Or not a recession, it's not falling off the cliff, but it is like paralyzed, it's not moving upwards. And we are at a very low level. We are still at a level slightly below 219 before the pandemic and the Russian attack on Ukraine. And it would be natural now that the German economy recovers, but it doesn't.
No recesión, pero sí estancamiento y un final de la primera fase de la recuperación. Ese es el titular con el que nos quedamos de Alemania, de Clemens Fuest, el presidente del IFO. Agradecer desde aquí al IFO esa disponibilidad.